Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Derek and I got a fun topic to talk about today, and one that you guys are always asking about. That is because we're going to be talking about the GoldenEye 007 decompilation project, and whether or not it could render a PC port in the future, because there is an active development decompilation project for GoldenEye 007, and honestly I want to see exactly what happened with Perfect Dark in the PC port, except for GoldenEye. Because even though I consider Perfect Dark the better game as far as its overall functionality and level layout is concerned, as far as nostalgia and just pure fun is concerned, I would say GoldenEye definitely takes the cake. You guys can debate that in the comment section down below, but we're here not to talk about which game is better, but the decompilation project of GoldenEye 007. Because don't forget, once the code is 100% decompiled, and honestly at this point in time people can start working on it anyway, it opens up the road for a full source port, and hopefully we see a static recompilation of GoldenEye as well. I do know that there's some in development, but I haven't really heard any updates on those, maybe in the last like 3 to 6 months. But people want to play GoldenEye on their PC in widescreen. They want to play at 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, even beyond that, having a full modding engine included in, maybe even some online support for stuff like the death matches and 4-player components. That is definitely a universe I want to live in, and developers out there are getting us closer and closer every single day. I haven't really talked about GoldenEye and the Decomp project for some time now, so I'm going to update you guys on all of that. Before I get too far involved though, do me a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to watch part of the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. And because GoldenEye is definitely a huge game for N64, and I'm sure it'll bring in some viewers that don't know what we're talking about here, let me just briefly explain what a decompilation is. When you play a game on N64 and PlayStation 1 and Sega Saturn or any other console or even PC out there, the code that you're playing is called compiled code. It takes the source code from the developer's computers and compiles it to run on the target hardware. But you need the source code to be able to do a source port. So by decompiling the actual game, what you're doing is bringing it back as close as possible to its original source code, so you could then rebuild it for the target platform, or then take that code and port it to a new modern architecture in the instance of PC, something like x86 or even ARM in some instances. So think about it like this: you put together a Lego set, when you decompile it, you take it all back apart and put the pieces back in their bags. So if we take a look at GoldenEye Depot right here, a really fun website that I'll show you guys in a moment. It is now at 92.4% decompiled, but on the screen it says 92.6%. So it is only 7.5% away from 100% fully decompiled, although the last line is some of the object handling in the game, so that definitely is a meaty chunk. So you'll see here the files that have been decompiled are 179. There's 204 to go, but that isn't a percentage. That is the listing of what does exist. You'll see here for the source game, that is the game source code. And when you see libultra, that's basically some of the APIs and engines and other components that Nintendo has to actually interface with N64 hardware. That's at 87.4%. But right now, basically, we're 7.5% away from this being done, and somebody posted this photo on that tweet and absolutely made me laugh. So once that hits 100% decompiled status, developers out there can take that code and then bring it over to any system they want to. Stuff like PC, stuff like the PlayStation Vita, basically anything that can run code that's at least more powerful than an N64 is going to be able to have some sort of port. Whether or not all those platforms are going to get ports, I really don't know. I know GoldenEye is definitely a game that people are going to want to play anywhere, but we'll just have to wait and see. But obviously PC is probably going to be the target platform for something like a source port, and you know when this is done, there's going to be a lot of groups out there that are going to be very interested in getting this thing ported to PC as quickly as possible for people to enjoy. Groups like Harbor Masters definitely love doing their PC ports, and I'm sure they would love to make a GoldenEye port, even though I have no confirmation that that is their plan. I am just presuming here. But again, this is exciting stuff, because right now we're playing GEPD for this capture, but as close to a real PC port of GoldenEye as you could get. It is just heavily improved emulation, but you get higher frame rates, you get 16:9 mouse and keyboard support, and something like a source port could even go beyond that, because it would leave the confines of running on N64 or N64 in emulation. Let's do a soundtrack sample just for fun, because the music is iconic, and I'll be right back to explain more about the decomp and what it could render in the future for everyone. I mean, just imagine that audio coming out of a PC port. It would be absolutely amazing. And don't forget, there is the GoldenEye 007 Project Bean Xbox 360 recomp out that you can play around with today. But I'm not talking about that as far as recomps are concerned. I'm talking about the fact that it has new models as well as new textures for all of the levels that exist in GoldenEye. And for the most part, the geometry is pretty consistent. That means not free, but with some work, you could basically get the models and textures out of something like Project Bean and then bring them over to a potential GoldenEye port, because a lot of people love texture packs and mods, and they even love bringing in new models. I mean, honestly, if you want a full conversion, I definitely would still play Project Bean over something like a GoldenEye PC port in whatever form you want to play it in, emulation or the recomp, because it already has all of those things. But if you want the textures from Project Bean and the models from something like GoldenEye, that would be achievable based upon the assets that already exist. So that really is a fun time, and that's definitely something to possibly look forward to in the future. Would you tell me down below, if there was a GoldenEye PC port, maybe in the next 6 months or so, would you want to play it with the original textures and models, just upscaled internally and then given basically a higher frame rate, or would you want all of these improvements that we see here? Because this is Project Bean, and you'll see when we're outside the hangar trying to go to the plane, you have a lot higher textures and you have just a lot more to look at, and it definitely runs smoother than the N64 version of the game. But if we go over to something like the N64 version in a moment, I think maybe a combination of these two would actually be really fun. But that is the great thing about having something like an actual decompilation of GoldenEye. It's going to allow you and developers to kind of mix and match, pick and choose what it is they want to make out of it. And that's why I really feel like with a game as big as GoldenEye, you will see more than one PC source port coming out of the actual mix. And that is always good, because what I say on the channel is options are great. The more ways we have to play some of the most iconic games of all time, the better off we all are and the more fun we can all have. But like I said, I would love to see a future in which there was at least online support, maybe with some sort of lobby, so you could get some matches in, because if you're like me today, you don't always have time for all of your friends to come over and play some GoldenEye with you. As we roll back over to GEPD, like I said, I love these textures as well, but maybe increasing the draw distance, maybe getting a high resolution skybox would be a nice kind of combination of the best of both worlds. But you tell me down below again, what's the #1 feature you'd love to see in a potential GoldenEye PC port? And like I like to remind everyone in videos, just because something gets 100% decompiled does not mean a port is a guarantee. A decompilation does nothing other than decompile that code from its compiled status to its source code, but it does not make a port automatically. If you were to recompile it, you're right back at where the N64 version of the game first started, so it doesn't quote-unquote benefit anything on the port side until people take that source code and work with it. And that can definitely be not the easiest process in the world. It does take people some time to do it. That's why you see these development groups kind of working on things for months on end until they have a release. Let's do one more soundtrack sample, just because I love the music in this game, and I do want to hear it coming out of my PC as a native port soon, and I'll be right back with more. It's definitely exciting that we're going to be living in a world soon where GoldenEye 007 on N64 is 100% decompiled, and unlike Paper Mario, which took years for anyone to decide to kind of bring it over to the PC as a source port, hopefully Harbor Masters releases their port soon. I think you're going to see some fast movement on this one, because everyone wants GoldenEye as a native PC application with all the improvements and refinements that come along with having something like that. It's going to be very targeted as far as the game is concerned for groups wanting to get out there and have that port and start having people play it, bug test it, and then basically just improve it as time goes on. So my guess would be, when you see this thing hit 100% decompiled status, I bet someone has some sort of playable build in any way, shape, or form, probably within at least 30 days. But honestly, sometimes I'm even surprised by how quickly things move. Might be more like 3 days. But we're going to live in a world soon, I can just tell, where there's going to be a GoldenEye N64 PC port that everyone can enjoy, and that's 100% a world I want to live in. Sure, that we are done. If you have any questions or comments, I'll leave them down below, but I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.